Story 1. In my early 30s, my lower back always hurt from sitting while working, and my knees burned when I had to walk upstairs. I was very active, skateboarding, wakeboarding, and snowboarding, until I started my software engineering job. I wasn't even overweight, but sitting motionless all day and then going to sleep only to wake up and do it again caused much of my body to atrophy after about a year. My dad joked that I looked worse than he did trying to climb stairs at a mall, even though he had worked tough blue-collar jobs his entire adult life, and he was not wrong. Starting last year, I began boarding again and made an effort to stretch and do a 15-minute workout. It is amazing how much better I feel physically and mentally. I cannot emphasize enough how a small amount of work can significantly improve your life. At one point, I had accepted the idea that the pains I felt were permanent and unavoidable. How silly that thought seems now. Story 2. This time last year, I weighed 406 pounds. Mobility was becoming a laborious task. Simple things like tying shoes felt like a struggle. I got out of breath easily. I decided to start dieting and going to the gym at the beginning of December. As of this past Sunday, I weighed 303 pounds, a total of 103 pounds lost in 9 months. The hardest part was simply getting started. I have 50 pounds left to reach my weight goal of 250 pounds. We can do this. Story 3. I started looking off in my clothes. It used to be effortless to just pull something from my closet and still look good. My clothes are a little bit expensive, and the thought of having to replace them all, and the stress of figuring out how to dress well for my new body, did not sit well with me. It was easier and cheaper for me to quit soda and some sweets. Story 4. I have taken many before pictures while telling myself I am going to start getting in shape. Basically, I have a slideshow of me gaining weight. Story 5. 490 pounds, heart attack survivor, quietly waiting to die. Then I had surgery, lost 220 pounds, and here we are. Story 6. I'm not overweight, but I saw my parents decline in health and noticed that all they did was sit and watch television and eat takeout. My wife, kids, and I started hiking every weekend and walking 4 miles a day if possible. I took up running and went from struggling after 100 yards to running 3 miles in 25 minutes. It's not much, but that was my wake-up call. Story 7. Dad died in December of 2024, and at the same time, I was going through the tail end of a really horrible relationship. I have always worn oversized baggy clothes, so I did not really pay attention to what was going on. I went in for an annual physical and weighed 315 pounds, which was the heaviest I had ever been. I was stress eating and neglecting everything about myself. Currently, since February, I have lost weight down to approximately 265 pounds, which is the weight I typically carry. I would like to lose another 30 pounds or so. Story 8. I weighed 560 pounds and had a hard time going any significant distance in my mid-20s. I realized that was unwise. I am now down to approximately 400 pounds. There is a long way to go, but I am already much better. I am 6 feet 4 inches tall, so that helps. Story 9. I had a lot of lower back pain while waking up, and I thought, if this is 31, what will 41, 51, and 61 look like? So I started working out, focusing on my posterior chain and abdominal muscles. I am happy to report that the lower back pain has subsided substantially. It is not perfect, but much better overall. Story 10. I weighed 320 pounds, size 26/28 US. I was sedentary, ate poorly, and everything was exhausting. I knew a big diet and exercise change would fail, so I made small changes I could tolerate, 1 or 2 at a time. Took a decade, but it made all the difference. That time was going to pass whether or not I made any changes to my lifestyle, so I wasn't in a hurry. It would take as long as it took. Currently, I weigh 170 pounds, size 8 US. I go to the gym regularly for strength training, work in my garden, go hiking frequently, cycle and kayak less often. I still eat poorly sometimes, but in moderation. For example, I have dessert every day, just no longer all day. Story 11. 250-something. I got into a fight with an inmate where my body literally did not do anything that it should have done if I was in shape. I said to myself, I am never letting that happen again. I have been working out since then. I started strength training. I started judo. I am still 250 pounds, but I have a different composition now. Story 12. When I got winded tying my shoes and had to sit down afterward like I had just run a mile. That was my, okay, we need a team meeting moment. Story 13. It was after a typical winter, which I had spent mostly sedentary, as I usually did. I went out to mow the lawn for the first time of the year and literally could not finish. I ran out of stamina and energy before I could complete the task. I was spent. This was a revelation. Nothing like that had ever happened to me before. It made me understand that regular exercise at this point in my life was no longer about vanity, as it always had been before, but was now all about quality of life and preventing physical decline in old age. I am still not as active as I would like, but I am much better than I was. No problems mowing the lawn anymore. Story 14. Going through a divorce, I hadn't exercised consistently in years. I was sleeping poorly and had actually developed mange because I was so stressed. I started going to the gym in January 2021 and haven't stopped since. I look and feel a million times better now. Story 15. When clothes I had owned for over a decade suddenly became way too tight, I knew I needed to change sizes. If I changed sizes, it definitely would not be to go up a size. Later, I realized I was about to enter level 3 obesity, and that felt like catching myself before falling off a cliff. Down 80 pounds with 15 to go. Story 16. My dog got out and I couldn't chase after him. My lungs burned after not even a minute. I felt like I was going to vomit. From that day, I've been working on my stamina. I can run a 2-kilometer distance without breaks. My goal is 6 kilometers by next year. My family participates in a run, walk, and jog event each year for charity. I could only walk it before, and even that was a struggle. I've also been working on building muscle and starting to lift weights because my dog is a large breed. I feared that if something happened to him, I wouldn't be able to pick him up. Each day we play a game. After I make my bed, I pick him up and toss him onto it. He loves it, but it is always just a mental check for myself to know that I can lift him. Sometimes I pick him up and carry him around the house just to be sure I can. I am like an overbearing parent with this dog. I am so paranoid that I won't be able to help him one day, so I am making sure that never happens. Story 17. When I looked like a broken biscuit tin in the dress I had altered and ready for my daughter's wedding. Now my son is getting married and my pride won't let my ex-husband see me that out of shape again. I never see him and I was always the fitness enthusiast. Story 18. I weighed about 120 pounds at 5 feet 11 inches with no muscle or mass at all. I was struggling at the time, just living off inexpensive chips and cookies. Story 19. I'm 28 and have been lingering around 350 pounds for the last 2 to 3 years. I'm thankfully completely capable of exercise and have no problem with healthy eating and plain water. But I think I truly am addicted to classic American foods. Sandwiches, pizza, pasta, and so on in large portions. I wasn't even eating to the point of discomfort, and it was still probably 1,500 calories per meal with a soda or two alongside it. The turning point. I had a few slices of Pizza Hut pizza with the little cheese bites as the crust, and it gave me such bad heartburn that I was up all night suffering. Not even antacids really helped. This has happened before with other foods, but this time it felt like a gentle, quiet signal. I don't want to feel like that again. It wasn't so much, I don't want to feel like that anymore, but just that individual evening felt more impactful than the entire experience. I've been working on serious lifestyle changes, including not drinking any calories anymore, and have lost around 15 pounds in 2 months. I started counting calories not to limit myself, but to be aware of how much I was feeding my body every day. I had no idea a large Coke was 400 calories. Very uncomfortable at first when all you want is extra cheese, extra sauce, and another soda, but it totally clicks once you see the changes actually working with little effort. Less soda, less dressing, less of anything. I'm so relieved I'm finally doing something and that it's working so easily. Story 20. 2 weeks before Disney, I tried to increase my step count. Less than a week into my walking exercise program, I developed plantar fasciitis. I am so disappointed in myself. I have not even worn shoe gear since I have not been active at all. This was a huge wake-up call. Story 21. When I went to help with a roof cleaning project, I realized I could not climb the ladder because of my stomach. I can climb that ladder now, but I still have more work to do. Story 22. 183 pounds back in April, got blood work done and was in pre-diabetic numbers. Now I am 168 pounds and will be getting a recheck in October. Been kind of falling into bad habits again and need to get back on track. Story 23. My Apple Watch would register my normal day-to-day walking around at work as a workout. Mostly just walking from client to client, helping them with their computer. Since then, I did CrossFit, then powerlifting and Olympic lifting plus cardio. And now my Apple Watch barely registers exercise during my day-to-day activities until I actually do a workout. Story 24. I couldn't keep up at my first job working at a small restaurant. I had spent my entire childhood overweight or obese, and entering young adulthood obese. Now, with a driver's license that was making it worse, I realized I could face a lifetime of not being able to move or wear clothes I loved, or I could face the hard truth that I was a lazy glutton who needed to make a change. The accountability gave me the push I needed to start eating clean and exercising regularly. I have lost 100 pounds and have maintained that more or less for the last 6 years. Story 25. I was 423 pounds, and now I am 195 pounds and still working on getting more toned. I had gastric bypass surgery, which I consider to be a tool for weight loss. Now I walk multiple miles every day, lift weights, swim, and can move freely without pain or restriction. Story 26. I weighed 160 pounds but could not run to save my life. There were gunshots in a crowd, and I could not run for more than 20 seconds. People were getting trampled by the crowd around me. I barely made it. I realized something had to change. Imagine dying because I had to take a quick walking break in the middle of a shootout. Story 27. I weighed 297 pounds and had been trying to lose weight, but for some reason could not. My work is mostly physical and I played softball once a week. I even tried eating one meal a day with no results. Finally, I went to the doctor because I was frustrated, and it turned out I was diabetic. Story 28. I was overweight for the longest time in my teenage years with extreme back pain that interfered with my daily life. I had a breast reduction surgery a few days after I graduated from high school, and that was when I realized I needed to change my life or things would continue to get worse. Fast forward just over 2 years, and I have lost 45 pounds. The surgery definitely helped and was necessary. Now, I have come to love myself for who I am. I am in much better physical shape and feel like I can truly do more with my life now than before. Story 29. I had sleep apnea so severe that I could not sit down without falling asleep, and joint and back issues so intense that I could not stand for 30 seconds without incredible pain. My obstructive sleep apnea was so bad that they had to cancel a colonoscopy because they could not keep me breathing. I was almost 400 pounds. On some level, I think I knew I was dying or at least facing the end. That was in late 2023. Now, in August 2025, I am down to almost 200 pounds and riding as I wait to race my last 2 races at tonight's local BMX event. Life is good, everyone. Story 30. I am pregnant with my second child and really feeling the 5 years that have passed since the first. My body is just not as strong as it was. I am doing physical therapy for pelvic pain now and planning to focus on building strength and flexibility once my body has recovered postpartum. I need to be able to keep up with these children and stay physically strong as I get older so I can continue to be there for them. Story 31. At 29, I finished graduate school while living on cigarettes and coffee. I was 40 pounds overweight and found myself struggling to run up the 3 flights of stairs at work. I quit smoking and started working out. A year later, I took up running and lost the weight. A year after that, I ran my first of 10 marathons. Story 32. I was referred to a bariatric doctor and saw him for the first time on Monday. He was pretty blunt. These were things I needed to hear, but it was still hard to listen. Story 33. I noticed I was gaining weight. Clothes didn't fit, and I started to hate how I looked in pictures, not even believing they were of me. I would lose weight occasionally, but nothing ever lasted. What finally motivated me to change for good was when I started exercising with a friend, mainly as a social activity. I didn't lose much weight at first but realized I was feeling a lot better. I began exercising more over time and gradually improved my diet. I didn't even realize how unfit I was until I had already changed and saw how miserable and constantly tired I used to be. I felt like a completely different person. Story 34. I have always loved being active and spending time outside. Last year, when I was 18 and weighed 320 pounds, I spent every dollar I had on a dirt bike. 8 hours later, I broke my toe and was out of work for 6 weeks. I was lucky to be able to work in the office for fewer hours. I realized that I hated working in an office. I understood that if I kept my lifestyle the same, I would become too out of shape for my current job and would hate my life. Now, I weigh 205 pounds, avoid impulse purchases, and still ride the dirt bike. Story 35. 2 years ago, I turned 30 and was a few Big Macs shy of 400 pounds at 5 feet 11 inches. I reached a fork in the road in my head. Continue to eat myself to death or take responsibility for the obesity that had been weighing me down since childhood. It took some trial and error to settle into the right habits, but I am around 295 pounds now, and I am currently on track to be down to about 200 pounds by the time I am 33. My secrets are to count calories to stay in a deficit, avoid moralizing the healthy food versus junk food conversation, and do physical activities I actually like instead of what others say is optimal. I have always liked lifting weights and hated cardio, but everyone around me who claimed to know what they were talking about insisted that I had to do hours of cardio to lose weight. The last 2 years of my experience have soundly debunked that nonsense. Story 36. I had stopped exercising due to laziness. One day, I felt like my heart was going to explode after eating Nashville hot chicken and walking to the movie theater across the street. Story 37. At my worst, I weighed 210 pounds. I was drinking heavily, smoking large amounts of marijuana, and eating a lot of snacks. I'm not sure that this was specifically what drove me to get my life together, because it wasn't until I was back down to 190 pounds that I finally got sober. Since then, I have been working my way back down. I am aiming to reach 165 pounds, which is my goal weight. It was definitely a point that I never intend to reach again. Story 38. I was pretty overweight and tried out for football but got humiliated. I worked hard for the rest of the year, lost about 100 pounds, built muscle, and now I am the star quarterback. I am proud of myself. Story 39. I am a 42-year-old man and I cannot do a push-up, pull-up, squat, or crouch. I cannot jog even to catch the train. I have edema in my ankles and enlarged breasts. My physique resembles that of someone who has never exercised in their life. Cannot sit on the floor comfortably and need help getting up. I have a stiff gait in the morning, and my right hip pops. My testosterone level was recently tested at 74 nanograms per deciliter. The healthy range for an adult woman is 19 to 70 nanograms per deciliter. If I do not take action soon, I will be in serious trouble. Story 40. I am 5 feet 9 inches tall and weigh 262 pounds. I ripped my pants bending over to pick up a box of Little Debbie snack cakes from the ground. My stomach would bump into the faucet when I washed my hands. I already had back pain, high blood pressure, and sleep apnea, but being diagnosed with fatty liver motivated me to lose weight. I have reduced my weight to 190 pounds and hope to reach 160 pounds. Story 41. I could barely walk from the pain in my knees due to arthritis caused by being severely overweight for a long time. I was shopping for stylish canes when I realized I could simply stop eating so frequently. Story 42. I weighed 250 pounds in my teens. I did no exercise and lived a completely sedentary life. One night, I could not fall asleep because I was breathing so hard. It scared me how difficult it was to breathe. My father told me that I needed to get healthier or I would not live long at the pace I was going. I joined my mother and sister on Weight Watchers and lost 100 pounds in about 2 years. Story 43. Got back up to 225 pounds. Sick of looking older and worse than I want to. I don't weigh myself, but I am down 3 belt sizes. Story 44. I had a persistent spot in my vision, like an afterimage that would not go away. I went to the eye doctor. The eye doctor took my blood pressure, could not believe the reading, took it again, and then sent me to the emergency room. Story 45. Could not fit into the local roller coaster park seats and had to walk of shame. Lost 10 pounds in 2 months. Story 46. The regular amount of being out of shape. I didn't really do anything differently. I just stopped buying soda and other sugary treats and started drinking more water. Changing your diet is a much more effective way to lose weight than exercising, in my opinion. But it takes a while. I have lost about 40 pounds from my heaviest, but that was over a year ago. I had a friend lose a lot of weight very fast, and he had a lot of loose skin. Not to say it wasn't the right move for him, just that I am fine with incremental improvements and being healthier overall. For me, it started being less about how I look or the number on the scale and more about how I felt. Story 47. When I noticed, I started feeling uncomfortable in my bikinis and crop tops. Looking at photos from my family's 4th of July trip disgusted me. I hired a trainer who gave me a meal and workout plan, and I lost 15 pounds, which was my goal. My diet was poor. I was eating once a day around 2 to 4 p.m. and then snacking at night. Now I eat 4 to 6 meals a day and am thriving. Diet is very important. Story 48. My back went out when I turned my head and sneezed. I didn't want to sneeze on my cousin's toothbrush, which was in front of me. I have exercised a lot since then, including plenty of deadlifts. It has never happened again. Story 49. Not too bad, just over 200 pounds. What gave me the wake-up call was not being able to catch my breath when I helped my friend move, while all my other friends who were far from being athletes were fine. Story 50. I am approximately 260 pounds now, and although I am 6 feet 5 inches tall and it does not show as much as it would on a smaller person, I do not like it, and it is the heaviest I have been. Maybe soon I will get myself together. Story 51. When I got winded bending over to tie my shoes, I seriously considered just living like that for the rest of my life. Story 52. Was 214.5 pounds at age 23. Am 209.1 pounds after a few days. Not sure if I am doing things right or not. I really dislike the diet, but I do want to not be obese. Story 53. A little different from the others here, but at the height of my eating disorder when I was 23, I was 5 feet 9 inches tall and weighed 130 pounds. I was thin and considered attractive, but I couldn't lift a jug of detergent without joint pain and a lot of strain on my body. I couldn't withstand a shower longer than 5 minutes without fainting. Now, at almost 30, I maintain a weight of 158 pounds and am stronger and more active than I have ever been. I am a professional baker, able to lift 50-pound flour sacks easily and keep up with the hustle of the kitchen. Being thin took as much from me as being overweight. Story 54. I gained 100 pounds during my first pregnancy due to extreme morning sickness and barely being able to keep much down. I only ate what I could keep down, which was by far the most unhealthy I have been food-wise. I switched jobs from fast food to a retail job that made me walk 30,000 to 40,000 steps per shift. I lost 40 pounds, then moved to a very labor-intensive job and lost the rest. Prior to that, I was heavily dependent on prescription medication but got clean and have stayed clean for now 9 years. I am currently trying to quit nicotine. I swear it is harder than quitting pills and losing weight combined. Story 55. Maybe tangential, but I have been running on a varied schedule for about 10 years. When I run less regularly or during an off period, I gain weight because I eat the same amount regardless. That said, I always know an off period has gone on too long when random people start giving me thumbs up and congratulating me on my runs. Story 56. I was depressed due to many difficult experiences in my life. I finished high school and stayed at home for about 2 years. My weight reached 252 pounds at 6 feet tall. The first sign I needed to change was physically feeling my stomach shift to the side when I lay down at night. Additional motivation came from relationship troubles. I committed to the gym for 6 months after getting a job. I am now down to 190 pounds and still have progress to make, but I feel better. Story 57. I weighed 95 pounds and was addicted to drugs so badly that I almost died when I stopped. I am a 5'8" male, so yes, that was very serious. Story 58. 240 pounds at 5 feet 6 inches. I realized something had to give when I felt like I could no longer shower comfortably. It was like the walls were closing in on me every time. I am down just over 70 pounds today at 168. Story 59. What is frustrating is that I have had many moments, and I still cannot get myself together. I constantly self-sabotage, and what is even worse is that I am self-aware, but it does nothing to stop me. Story 60. Not so bad though, but I really do not have any shape at all, just plain. Then I realized that if I want to feel good about myself and be genuinely happy looking in the mirror, I have to do something about it. Story 61. I have become partially disabled over the last 2 years due to a degenerative back condition and very slow healthcare options in Canada. I was once fit, then had children and gained some weight, but now I cannot exercise at all except for my 30 to 40-minute physiotherapy routine that probably burns about half an apple's worth of calories. I love good quality food and have never been successful at dieting. In my 20s, cigarettes helped curb my appetite, but that is no longer an option. It was never a problem before because I could work out. Having lost the ability to walk and entering menopause, the weight has really been increasing. I am realizing that while I wait a very long time, already 2 years, for the healthcare system to help me and find a solution, I will need to learn how to go to bed hungry and give up yet another pleasure in my life. I enjoy healthy but richer foods like cheese, cream, red meats, and pasta. I love to cook, despise chain restaurants, and consider myself a foodie, though I do not like deep-fried or processed foods. Basically, I have gained so much weight that I am at my highest pregnancy weight, and even my underwear feels tight. It looks like I will need to go to bed hungry, cut most carbohydrates, and give up many of the good foods I enjoy. I am not looking forward to feeling miserable, being unable to exercise for my mental health, or eating less enjoyable food. September is the day I start. Story 62. I was somewhere past 320 pounds when I got ready for work one morning and my underwear ripped on the inner thigh seam. I sighed, rationalized it as an older pair, and moved on with my routine thinking I should go to the gym again. By the time I got home after work, that thought left my mind and a bag of chips found my hand. When the second pair ripped a week later, I changed the groceries I grabbed that weekend and picked up the Ring Fit that had been collecting dust. I set my goals to lose 10 pounds at a time. I am down to 203 pounds now, but still had to buy a whole new set of underwear after going down too many sizes. I am still looking to lose a bit more, but that is more based on how I feel than a specific number nowadays. Story 63. A 42-year-old with necrotic pancreatitis caused by alcoholism. Height 5 feet 10 inches and weight 102 kilograms. Blood pressure is 142/110. Very high cholesterol. Hemochromatosis. Fatty liver. Acid reflux. Kidneys and digestive system failed, and lungs were filling with fluid. Consumed 700 milliliters of vodka daily. Story 64. My entire body hurt and I could not move properly. I did not get myself together initially, but I just started a prescribed medication that actually worked for my brain, and then my body followed suit. Story 65. 193 pounds, which was my heaviest. I potentially had 3 weddings to attend in the span of a year, one of which I was going to be in the wedding party. That was enough to motivate me to lose weight. I lost about 30 pounds before the first wedding, which I was in. I have lost about 50 pounds so far. Story 66. I had to literally move my gut out of the way to tie my shoes. I walked as if I were pregnant. I got out of breath doing basic chores. I had trouble getting in and out of my car. I experienced unexplained persistent foot pain after standing for only short periods. While this is not terrible compared to many people who became severely overweight, it was hard enough to get back into shape when only 70 to 80 pounds overweight. I can't imagine having to lose more than that. Whenever I think about backsliding, I remember how much more physically difficult it is to navigate the world when you are heavier. Life is just easier when you don't have to carry around all that extra weight. Story 67. I wasn't that big for an American, like a size 10, but I had started to grow skin tags and couldn't walk more than 2 or 3 miles without foot or knee aches. Google said these were early signs of developing diabetes, so I went to the gym. I lost 30 pounds almost immediately but was still struggling to get back to my original size 4. Story 68. Not my heaviest, not my thinnest. I have never really cared about my weight. I carried it in a way that people rarely said anything negative and was able to shrug it off when they did, or when I was unable to fit in chairs or rides, which was not often. I did not really care about my body in general. It was not the center of my perception of myself. Last year, I had two likely related health events that required emergency room visits. They were not directly related to my physical condition, and at the time I was fairly active as a reaction to life. However, it woke me up to my body and how important it is to take care of it consistently. Also, my mental state improved significantly. Exercise has really helped me there as well. My relationship with food shifted drastically. Grappling with being forced to stop relying on it for emotional reasons before addressing the underlying causes was quite startling. Story 69. When climbing a single flight of stairs felt like a full workout, I knew something was wrong. I was sweating just folding laundry, constantly tired, and avoiding mirrors. That is when it hit me. This is not just being out of shape, this is giving up on myself. Story 70. On the opposite end, I need to get to the gym because I am just so weak. Things that I could or should be able to lift feel heavy, or I have to strain in an unexpected way. It is strange to feel weak. Story 71. My brothers came to visit. One had recovered from a back injury that took him about 18 months. He lost 60 pounds. The other was unhealthy but not overweight. I weighed 224 pounds. I've lost 15 pounds in 2 months. I started using my rowing machine for 5 minutes a day. Now I'm up to 30 minutes. My diet has been good. I feel better. I think I've lost 20 pounds of fat and gained 5 pounds of muscle. I'm taking it slow and being patient. I am researching small ways to improve my health. Story 72. My mom came to my law school graduation. I hadn't seen her in a few months, and her chronic obstructive pulmonary disease had become so severe that she couldn't walk more than 2 or 3 steps. So we had to get her a wheelchair. I had smoked for 20 years at that point and was staring at my future. I quit smoking the next day, and she died a year later. Story 73. I was debilitated. I am not that large, but I leave my case as an example that even relatively low levels of elevated abdominal fat can cause problems. At about 165 pounds, I struggled to carry a basket of laundry upstairs. Right now, I could spin one on my finger. Story 74. It will happen any day now. But joking aside, I nearly hit 400 pounds, renewed my license, and never actually saw myself so large. My face has always been deceptively chubby, so bathroom mirrors did not tip me off, but the tablet display at the Department of Motor Vehicles showed almost my whole upper body while it tried to find my face. I have always been round, but you never contextualize your own body until something really puts you out of your internalized view of yourself. No surgery, just cooled it with the junk food. 189 pounds now, mostly quit soda. Story 75. I am 5 feet 7 inches tall and weigh 255 pounds. I couldn't bend over to tie my laces without losing my breath. I tried jogging and hurt my knee. Resistance training helps. I am stronger again and my blood pressure is lower, but I need to eat less. Story 76. I was around 14 years old, weighing about 46 kilograms. My body mass index was 13.7 at its worst. I was very thin. Here I am now at 17, weighing 61 kilograms and definitely more muscular and leaner than before, but I still have a long way to go. Story 77. I woke up screaming in pain one day. Due to my weight, I was putting tremendous pressure on my joints while lying in bed on my side. However, if I lay on my back, I would choke on my own fat. Going to sleep was absolute torture. I was miserable and reached a breaking point. That was about 2 years ago. I have lost over 100 pounds since, going from 300 pounds to 190 pounds. Story 78. I was 40 to 50 pounds overweight, and my mother was concerned that I had sleep apnea. It was not severe, but it was still a health concern. Story 79. Not necessarily a weight issue, but during COVID-19 I got a pulse oximeter and my resting heart rate was consistently above 110 beats per minute. As someone who dislikes going to doctors, I decided to try doing 20 minutes of exercise a day to see if it helped at all. not to lose weight, just some core strengthening exercises. 3 years later, my resting heart rate is in the low 70s. I recently went for a hike that would have been very difficult for me years ago, and I was fine. Turns out, it is a lot easier to breathe when your heart rate isn't very high. Story 80. I am in progress right now. I am in my late 30s and weighed around 390 pounds for quite a while. One day, I stepped on the scale and it showed 402 pounds. Even though it was only a few pounds difference, it was devastating. I also started having back pain and other aches and was always tired. I started Zepbound and improved my diet. About 3 months later, I am down 40 pounds and still going strong. I am feeling much better already. Story 81. I grew up chubby but was always pretty active. Then I hurt my knee in a motorcycle accident and became completely sedentary. I slowly went from chubby to overweight, reaching a maximum weight of 250 pounds at 6 feet 2 inches, but with almost no muscle. Later, I tried to go for a hike with some friends. Hiking had never been a problem before, even though I had never been in great shape. It was a short but steep hike that I had done years earlier without difficulty. This time, I couldn't finish. We had to turn around because of me, and it wasn't just the cardiovascular effort. My legs felt like mush and I couldn't keep going uphill. I was ashamed, embarrassed, hated how I felt. It was like physical torture, and angry that hiking was no longer enjoyable. That was 20 years ago, and I have maintained various levels of good shape ever since. I am now 42 and still feel better than I did as a teenager. Story 82. I bought my mother an iPhone for Mother's Day 1 year, and her response was, "You look terrible in your jeans." Story 83. It was my freshman year. I looked down and couldn't see my penis anymore. My stomach had gotten so big that I couldn't see it while standing. At that moment, I thought to myself, all right, this has gone too far. I need to get myself together. Story 84. I had been over 300 pounds for many years. My mother managed to lose 70 pounds on Weight Watchers. I tried it and have lost 85 pounds since last year. Story 85. My dad locked the keys inside my car, and I had to walk home while eating a comically large ice cream with several fattening toppings. The entire time, I was panting and cramping. My body was trying to give out, and I was tired. I cracked jokes with my sister, and it actually hurt to laugh, which was a first for me. All of this happened in just 1 mile of walking, and I felt like I was dying at the end. Story 86. Every time I become lazy enough for my back to spasm, I hobble around for 2 weeks. Then I get myself together, tell myself it will not happen again, and repeat this 18 months later. Story 87. I was out of breath walking up a flight of stairs at work at my new job. Also, my knee was hurting. At first, I thought I would just get used to it, but that did not happen. My blood pressure was very high, so I was also borderline with hypertension. It took over a year to lose 50 pounds. Walking up the stairs at work nowadays is easy, and my knees are no longer in pain. I still have to work on stretching exercises. It is a work in progress. Story 88. When tying my shoes left me winded and I avoided mirrors as if they owed me money, I knew it was time to fix things. Story 89. I got so out of shape that walking to the refrigerator felt like cardiovascular exercise. I realized I needed a change when I got winded opening a jar. That is when I said, yes, time to fix this before I turn into a potato permanently. Story 90. I realized I forgot something in the house and ran back over the grass. I tripped on a pant leg that was just a little too long and fell hard, unable to stop myself. Luckily, it was on grass. I realized I really need to get my strength back and take better care of myself. I started going for daily walks as a beginning. Story 91. I wasn't that out of shape, weighing between 180 and 200 pounds, which was big for my height of 5 feet 8 inches. A friend asked me to be intimate with her because she missed the feeling. She was bisexual and had a girlfriend. I thought it was certain, but she backed out, saying she didn't expect me to be that large. That motivated me to work out at the gym for 6 months straight. Story 92. I hated my body for years, but my health was very poor. I was sick all the time, so I kept giving myself slack. I went to the doctor, and they were disrespectful about my immune and hormonal problems. They basically just blamed my weight and anxiety. I do not have anxiety, and I was only slightly obese at that point. All of my weight gain was due to declining health and hormonal imbalances. I gained 60 pounds in 3 years after getting COVID-19, which wreaked havoc on my body. It was hard to get out of bed. I was sleeping 10 to 12 hours a day and still felt exhausted all day. I doubled down, focused, and lost 30 pounds, reaching a normal weight. This did not fix my health problems, and the doctor did not even notice. My basal metabolic rate was very low, and I was maintaining on 1,400 kilocalories a day. I still experienced extreme fatigue, got sick easily, bruised easily, developed new allergies, gastritis, prediabetes, and insulin resistance. A year passed. I started a new job, focused on my sleep, worked out, and began taking vitamin D and B vitamins because I was critically deficient. I tried a variety of medications at my doctor's suggestion. I gained 16 pounds from my weight loss last year, weighing around 166 pounds. At this point, I was fed up. My health was poor, I was doing everything right, and I had to essentially starve myself to stay a healthy weight. Then, in April of this year, I decided to start tirzepatide for my insulin resistance, with weight loss being a beneficial side effect. I just did not want to be so tired all the time. This medication absolutely changed my life. It helps with my blood glucose, reduces fatigue, and reduces inflammation. I have lost 35 pounds in 4 months, gained muscle, and my basal metabolic rate is higher now. It is an amazing option, and I dislike that it is mainly advertised for weight loss. This should really be the frontline treatment for insulin resistance and polycystic ovary syndrome. In my case, weight gain was a symptom of my insulin resistance, not the cause. Story 93. I was over 240 pounds at only 5 feet 2 inches tall and looked like a bowling ball. I was always out of breath and didn't recognize myself anymore. One day, I started eating healthy, counted every calorie, and lost all the weight in 10 months. Now, I am 128 pounds. Story 94. I was 19 or 20 and weighed up to 180 pounds. I am only 5 feet 1 inch, and I knew I was big. Walking to class left me huffing and puffing. One of the worst things was getting denied from fraternities on Halloween. Then I got a job at J.Crew and bought nicer clothes with my employee discount. I realized that I felt better about myself when I stopped wearing baggy clothes from Kohl's. That was the beginning of me understanding how actually caring for myself made me feel better. I wasn't a lump in baggy clothes, but I was good enough as I was to invest in nicer things. COVID-19 happened, and I invested in nice workout clothes which helped motivate me to walk a few miles every day. It got easier to breathe, my body hurt less, and my skin looked better, so I just kept going. I lost about 50 pounds and have been able to keep it off for 4 years now. Story 95. Topped out at 306. Got it down to 219 2 years ago, rolling in the 230s now. Getting rid of the weight is hard. Realizing that your diet is actually a permanent change and keeping the weight off forever is harder. Story 96. Last year, I had gained weight, reaching between 375 and 380 pounds from about 300 pounds. It was getting to the point where I was struggling to clean myself. I could manage, but another 10 pounds, and I would have needed a tool to reach. Also, I saw a person from high school whom I had not seen in years, and she said to me, "Jesus, you put on some weight." It was very embarrassing. On December 30th, 2024, I had enough and started eating 1 meal a day. I also walk about 8,000 to 10,000 steps daily. That's it. As of last week, I weigh 286 pounds. I still have a way to go. Story 97. I am 25 years old and used to get tired going downstairs. I have lost 33 kilograms and have been working out, so I feel much better now with my health. Story 98. I was at 235. The doctor told me I should start taking blood pressure medication. Between taking pills for the rest of my life or losing weight, I chose losing weight. Story 99. I accidentally inhaled a tiny bit of Takis and coughed so hard my forearms throbbed. Still not bad enough to convince me to get my act together, but it cannot be a good sign. Story 100. I was about 330 pounds. I couldn't stand up from bed or a chair without grabbing onto something because my belly got in the way. It was getting harder to wipe after using the bathroom. My knees were killing me, and I could barely get up the stairs to my apartment. I broke several chairs at work and eventually quit to work from home because I couldn't keep up with the children I was in charge of. I live in a country where size small in my own country would be a large, and my size simply didn't exist. I was running out of clothes stretchy enough to fit into. I also wanted to die. That was last May. I decided to live and got bariatric surgery. I now weigh about 200 pounds, probably. I have my mobility, energy, and life back. I met my person, and we are looking at getting married within the next year or so. We met shortly after my surgery, and he thought I was sexy from the beginning but finds me even more attractive as I get smaller. I was worried he would only be into fat women, but it turns out he's just into me. I'm actually still heavier than I was for most of my adult life. 50 pounds bigger than when I first started thinking I was fat and hating myself for it. But now, having been to the depths of hell and back, I am actually so happy with how I look. I know I'm no model or anything, but I'm just so grateful to have made it through to the other side that I still feel beautiful. Story 101. I was in my 40s, 5 feet 2 inches tall, and weighed 233 pounds. My kidneys were failing, and I had chronic swelling in my lower legs and feet. I am now 51 years old, 5 feet 1 inch tall, and weigh 151 pounds. I no longer have swelling, kidney problems, asthma, or back pain. Story 102. I weighed around 340 pounds. I had always hovered around 280 pounds, which is still 50 pounds overweight for me, all my life until my job became more sedentary. More than anything, I absolutely do not want to become a person who has a hard time moving around. Story 103. When I hit 227 pounds, I started retaining water and felt like something was wrong. I ended up reaching my maximum weight of 230 pounds and decided enough was enough. I am now down to 212 pounds and still working toward my goal of 170 pounds. I started in late April, early May. Story 104. Skinny fat, checking in. I used to be actually in shape, but not anymore. Last month, I played kickball for the first time in at least 25 years. I am in my late 30s and woke up the next morning feeling like I had been hit by a truck. My hip flexors were so sore that I could not move my legs under my own power. I had to manually lift my thighs to get out of bed, and it took me over a minute to actually stand up. Once I got up, I realized my chest and back were also hurting a lot. I had to go walking, slowly stretching, for over 30 minutes before I felt normal enough to go about my day. The pain and weakness lasted over a week in total. I am starting a swimming program this week. Wish me luck getting back to where I want to be. Story 105. One day I woke up, saw myself in the mirror, and remembered Salman Khan. I am at 13% body fat, on my way to 10%. Story 106. Probably not what most people mean by out of shape, but I realized I needed more of both food and exercise when I noticed that I had lost 25 pounds in about a year without trying and did not feel I could safely exercise without passing out. While I was only 1 or 2 body mass index points underweight, it was compounded by my chronically low blood pressure and high beats per minute, resulting in poor health. I am not fully in the clear yet, but I only go blind when I stand up half of the time now instead of every time, so that is progress. Story 107. I have a disability that essentially means I need to stay relatively active, doing frequent, low-impact exercise to maintain my mobility. At one point, before physical therapy, I severely struggled to walk and could no longer make it through classes, outings, and other quality-of-life activities. I did several aggressive physical therapy regimens and currently try to walk 7,000 steps per day, the right amount for me given my size and ability, do home physical therapy exercises, and attend Pilates classes twice a week. It can be a drag, especially as a young person, but I know that without it I would decondition fairly rapidly and lose much of the ability I have now. Note: this is the right way for me to manage my health. It is not a suggestion that exercise somehow cures every disability or that disabled people are just out of shape, or that everyone is responsible for being relatively able-bodied. I am sharing my experience from my point of view. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.